page. And then this back page, okay, so I'm going to let you fill in what the input and output are. Just read the context carefully, identify who's in, who's out. But for the horizontal asymptote and the practical meaning, and then also some domain and algebra. So the horizontal asymptote, once again, is the coefficients of the variable. Horizontal asymptote is the coefficients of the variable. So where is my variable? It's right here. Where are the coefficients? They are right here, 135 and 0.5. So as far as my horizontal asymptote is concerned, it is at whatever 135 divided by 0.5 is. Okay, you need to go away. There we go. Ah, no, wait, sorry. Go back. There we go. So text, here we go. So the horizontal asymptote is whatever 135 divided by 0.5 is, which I know is 270. Okay, so the value of the horizontal asymptote in this problem is 270. Now we usually call it by its output letter, which for this particular problem is F for fish. So the F equals 270 is our horizontal asymptote. Okay, but what does it mean? So keep in mind that horizontal asymptotes are barriers. They're not errors, they're just barriers. So if you were to graph this function, which I encourage you to do so in Desmos, we will in a minute also, but if you graph this function, you're going to see that it's increasing, but it's not increasing indefinitely. It reaches like an upper limit. And so keep in mind that we're talking about the letter F right now, which by the way stands for fish. So when you say that the horizontal asymptote is at F equals 270, what you're saying is that the number of fish will not actually reach 270. No, remember, that's the barrier, but it will approach 270. And the other thing to keep in mind is, remember that horizontal asymptotes are the end behavior, meaning this isn't going to happen for like a long time. You're not going to see 270 fish in this fish tank in like the first month or the second month or even the third month or the 10th month. It's going to take many months for this number to ever be visible. Remember our conversation about horizontal asymptotes. You have to plug in a really big input for this number to even come close to showing up. So the number of fish will approach 270 as the months go by. You have to acknowledge that time has got to pass before you're ever gonna see this happen. So I'll be looking for a phrase like this on your exam. It might not be about fish, and it might not be months, it might be years or days or hours, but nonetheless, something will be approaching its limit or its barrier as time passes. So that's kind of what I'm looking for when it says state the practical meaning of a horizontal asymptote. The domain versus the practical domain, I am going to let you think about that one on your own. Think about the domain of a rational function, something you had to do up here as well. So think about the domain of a rational function, but then also keep in mind, this is absolutely a word problem. So read it very carefully because there's a clue in the paragraph that tells you where the practical domain should be. So you're going to have two answers on number 3. You're going to tell me what the domain is, just of the formula itself, and then you're going to read the paragraph carefully and you're going to decide what the practical domain should be instead. 2 answers. Okay, last but not least, this is the last one that I want to make sure that we talk about just briefly. So solving for when, oh, that should say F. not P, F. That's a typo. I'm sorry. Solving for when f of m equals 187. Okay, so notice that this is an output value of 187. So if I were to go into my Desmos, 90 plus 135, okay. If I go into my Desmos and just do a regular function, y equals 90 plus 135x divided by 1 plus 0.5x. Okay, so keep in mind, when you put it in Desmos, it's not fancy variables anymore. It's just x's and y's, or if you really wanted to, you could say f of x, but nonetheless, no fancy variables. So the window, first of all, sucks because remember that the horizontal asymptote was 270. So yeah, I'm gonna go into my wrench and I'm gonna make my y-axis go all the way up to 300. There we go, much better. Okay, so this is the practical portion of the graph. A hint for your practical domain. This is the practical portion of the graph. And as you can see, it definitely reaches a barrier up there at 270. This was the horizontal asymptote that we already talked about. Check that out. Beautiful. But now for that last question, it's asking us to find when the output value is 187. So for Desmos purposes, how do you tell Desmos, hey Desmos, I want an output of 187. Output, the letter y. Y equals 187. And certainly you can just intersect it and call it a day. Like you're done. The answer is 2.33 months. Or 2.34 months if we round. So once again, I cannot stress enough, intersect method, ladies and gents, is your best friend. Just know how to use your technology and you can always answer plugging something in or using it as an output, of course, with your y equals. But one more time, let's talk about the algebra. So if I wanted to do this very same question with a pencil and paper. So my formula was 90 plus 135m all over 1 plus 0.5m. And now here we are wanting to find an output of 187. So once again, just acknowledging that 187 is the output, so it goes on the outside. Now, how to solve this, guys? Same thing as the horizontal intercept. The only reason this equation is intimidating is because it's a fraction. So step number one, get rid of the fraction. What's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So you're going to have 1 plus 0.5m getting multiplied. Now, what was the whole point of that multiplication though? Again, it was to get rid of that division. So on the left-hand side, the whole point is that you just got rid of the denominator. Now on the other side though, this time, unfortunately, it is not just a big fat zero. Remember on the horizontal intercept, it just got zeroed out? Well, sorry, this isn't the horizontal intercept. You actually have 187. And notice you're now multiplying the 187 by that entire bottom. So you do need to distribute. So 187 times 1, and also 187 times 0.5. Let's see, what's 187 cut in half? It is 93.5, I believe. 93, yeah, I think so. Let's do a quick fact check on that. Mental math has never been my forte. 187 times 0.5, 93.5, okay, sweet. Okay, so you've gotten rid of the fraction. That's definitely a huge step in the right direction. And now you just have to decide, variable m. Now you just have to decide which way you want to move your variables. So do you want to bring the 93s over to the left, or do you want to bring the 135s over to the right? I personally would like to bring my 93s over just so that I can keep my variable positive. In the end, it doesn't matter. Just pick a side and go for it. So now on the left, we'd have 90 plus 135 minus 93.5. 135 minus 93.5 is 41 and a half. 41.5. Those are my M's. Equals 187 is still there. That has canceled out. Okay, cruising right along. Minus 90 from both sides. So we are at 41.5 is equal to, what is that, 97? And then divide by, I keep losing my M. Guys, don't lose your M. I keep forgetting to write my M. Divide by 41.5 on both sides, 41.5, and 97 divided by 41.5 is 2.337. M equals 2.337. Please tell me that's what we got on Desmos too. It should have been. Should have been, should have been, should have been. Yes, totally is. Okay, so again, guys, I think you know me by now. You're allowed to use your Desmos. I'm not going to take away your Desmos. However, it is my job to make sure that you can also be algebra students. And so if you had to, you can take your 187 and put it on the outside of your formula and then use inverse operations. Solve for M, solve for M, solve for M. Inverse operations, undo, undo, undo until you have M by itself. All right, so pretty please just humor me and make sense of this algebra. Even if you end up using Desmos in the future for my class, that's okay. You're just going to tell me on exam day, I put this in line 1 of Desmos. I put this in line 2 of Desmos. I touched where they intersected and I got blah as my answer. Excuse me, that's totally fine, but humor me. Make sense of these steps. Try to understand every single one of them. And if you absolutely had to do this on your own someday, I would like to think that you could. You should be able to do this if you had to. Okay, that, friends, is a wrap with rational functions and halfway through your very last unit of this class. Crazy. Okay, we will talk to you soon. Hope everyone is well.